Hello everyone, welcome back. From our /PettyRevenge user, Big Hair Don't Care. I have to pay to print personal stuff at work? So do you, boss. Many years ago, I worked for an organization providing frontline customer service. It was a decent place to work, but our manager had lots of rules. One of the rules was that we could not do any personal printing with the printers at work. If we did, we were expected to pay 50 cents per page for black and white printing and $1 per page for color. I'm not sure who made this rule, but the manager was constantly reminding us. Our desks were not assigned, meaning any day you could be sitting at any desk, depending on your assigned tasks for the day. One day, I was interviewing for another job within the organization, but at another location. Prior to the interview, the manager of the other location asked me if I'd mind printing a copy of my resume and bringing it with me as their printers were down for the day. I said no problem and figured I'd print it at work since it was work-related. I was sitting at a desk that did not have a printer at it. The closest printer was located between my manager's desk and an employee desk. So I printed it and stood up to go get it. Before I got to the printer, my manager got there first. My print job went ahead of hers. When she saw what I had printed, she said, "Op, this looks like a personal print job." I explained it wasn't, but she disagreed and said since it had nothing to do with our day-to-day work, I had to pay $2 for 4 black and white pages. I begrudgingly paid up. I asked her what happened to the money, and she said she always put it in the Christmas party fund. All right. A few weeks later, I was sitting at the desk with a printer at it. It was lunchtime, and everyone except my manager agreed to go to a nearby restaurant for lunch. I had walked out of our building and realized I forgot my wallet. So I quickly ran back in to get it. When I got to my desk, I could hear the printer going. I was curious about what was being printed as it was spitting out page after page. I quickly glanced at the pile and saw at least 100 pages printed in color, announcing a Sweet 16 for Trista, our manager's daughter. It very obviously belonged to my manager. My manager came out of the bathroom a moment later and seemed shocked to see me standing there. I picked up the pile, passed it to her, and told her our Christmas party fund was going to be getting a big boost. She said nothing but looked really uncomfortable. A few weeks later, our district manager made his quarterly visit. He talked about the upcoming Christmas party and how excited he was for it. I decided it was time for some petty revenge. I raised my hand and said, "Just wondering how much we've accumulated this year for the Christmas party from print jobs?" He looked so confused and asked me to explain what I meant. So I told him our manager's rule. He got really quiet and said he'd have to review this. The next day, my manager sent an email saying the printing rule was something she was misinformed on and would be abolished immediately. Me, being the little troublemaker I am, hit reply all and asked what would happen to the already accumulated funds. Someone else said we should have a nice healthy fund for a pizza lunch, and everyone agreed. The next day, I heard my manager ordering 10 pizzas for lunch. She also used her own personal credit card to pay for it all. Do I think she was pocketing the printing money all along? Absolutely. But it was fun making her sweat and then having to spend nearly $300 the next day to make up for it. Edit, $30 for a large pizza is very standard where I'm from. I ordered a pizza for supper last night and with tax, tip, and delivery I paid $36. Our manager ordered us pizza from Boston Pizza, Canadian chain. Google them, and you'll see their prices. From our /PettyRevenge user, Ezra611. Wanna block my driveway, officer? It's gonna be another minute or two on coffee. About a decade ago, I worked an early morning shift at a fast food restaurant. We open at 6 a.m., so I had to be at work by 5 a.m. I would leave my house at about 4:45 a.m. every morning. My management was pretty relaxed about the opening shift, clocking in up to 10 minutes late wasn't a big deal, as long as you showed up ready to go. One morning, I came outside at 4:45 a.m. to find a local police officer had pulled someone over and was now blocking my driveway. This had happened before, but normally in the afternoon. I would just ask the officer to move forwards or back a couple of feet, and then I could pull in or out of the driveway without any issue. However, this officer angrily informed me that I would have to wait until he was done. I snapped a picture of his car, texted it to my manager, and explained my tardiness. 40 minutes later, the police officer finally moved. I scrambled into the car and headed to work, arriving 15 minutes before we opened. I frantically started to brew tea and fetch ice, condensing my 50-minute routine into 15. I almost forgot to brew coffee. Opening time rolled around, and the first group of customers came in. It was a group of our local police officers, led by the captain. I guess they were about to do a shift change. One of the officers in the group was the one who had blocked my driveway. The captain ordered coffee, and I regretfully informed him that there would be a 5-minute wait on coffee because I got to work extremely late. The captain asked why, so I pulled out my phone and explained that one of his officers blocked my driveway for 45 minutes for a routine traffic stop. The captain proceeded to chew out that officer in front of all his colleagues, exclaiming that nothing short of a life or death emergency should block my driveway if it interfered with him getting his morning coffee. My driveway was never blocked again, and the captain always got his coffee at 6 a.m. without interruption. Story 3, from our /PettyRevenge user, Strewever. Oh, you want my parking spot? It was Christmas time, and the mall parking lot was jammed. Somehow, I lucked into a space near an entrance. 4 hours later, my friend Dawn and I staggered back to my car with full arms and very sore feet, eager to be home in half an hour. We stowed our bags, buckled in, and laughed ruefully about how exhausted we were. As I began backing out, a car slowly pulled past right behind me. Naturally, I braked to wait for the car to clear my spot. However, the driver saw my brake lights and realized she'd lucked out. All she had to do was back up and let me out, and my primo spot would be hers. But it couldn't be that easy. Another car was tight on her tail, and that driver wanted my spot too. Neither of them was budging. The two drivers' faces got redder and redder as they honked and revved their engines, making the other driver think they were going to plow right into their car if it didn't move. They generally made utter fools of themselves over the parking spot. Meanwhile, my friend and I were trapped and getting pretty mad ourselves. After more than 5 minutes of this craziness, with the motor running but going nowhere, Dawn and I had had enough. We looked at each other, smiled, got out of the car, locked it back up, and waved at the two disbelieving parking warriors as we headed back into the mall for a much-needed drink and a bite to eat. Edit. Thanks, everyone, for your comments and awards. This has been a wild ride. Story 4 from our /PettyRevenge user, the Toilet Destroyer. Entitled Parker blocked in my driveway, so I blocked them in and got drunk all weekend. Friday night, I came home from work to find someone on our block was having a large party, and someone decided they were entitled to park in my driveway. Keep in mind, my driveway is a single car width lined with a retaining wall on both sides and a garage at the end. Essentially impossible for a tow truck to come pull them out without property damage. Seeing this and the lack of street parking, I took this as a cue to park right behind them in my driveway. A few hours go by, and the entitled parker is now knocking at my door, demanding I move my car so she can leave. Seeing as they were demanding, I informed them that I had been drinking and would not move my car. The entitled parker then decides to call the police to get them to force me to move. When the police knocked on my door, I made sure to grab a beer from the fridge before I answered to talk to the officer. I informed him that after I got home, I was unwinding and had been drinking and was in no shape to drive. At this point, their hands were tied because they couldn't tow her car out. I'm in no shape to drive, and I'm legally parked in my driveway. I ended up telling the entitled parker that since it is a long weekend, I would be on a weekend-long bender, and they could come move my car after I go to work on Tuesday. Story 5, from our /PettyRevenge user, Roxeter. My aunt ruined my dinner, so I ruined hers. My petty revenge story is a little gross, so I apologize in advance. I have a sensitivity/intolerance to most meats. Red meat is the worst, and beef is particularly bad. Doctors recommended I try to get my protein from alternative sources if possible, so I've happily been a vegetarian since I was 13 or so. When I was younger, my aunt did not believe the doctors and thought I was just being fussy. We come from a meat and potatoes town, so she had plenty of friends backing her up on this. This is the same aunt who convinced my parents I was faking asthma. Turns out, I wasn't. Shocker, and also refused to get her own daughter glasses because she thought she just wanted them for attention. She later discovered her daughter's eyesight was atrocious. Another shocker, I know. The whole family regularly had dinner together, taking turns hosting. When it was my aunt's turn to host, she assured me my burger was meatless. As you probably guessed, it was not. I was starving that night and gulped down my beef burger first. My aunt was smiling, and I thought it was simply because I liked her cooking. Looking back, I realize her little smirk was because she thought she had caught me in a lie or achieved whatever her endgame was. Well, a few minutes passed, and I got that familiar, unpleasant feeling in my stomach. It was then that I realized what she had done, and why she was smiling. When I eat meat, I almost always get sick. I just can't hold it down. So, when it came time to kneel before the porcelain throne, I decided to stay put. I instead took aim at my aunt, who was seated beside me at the head of the table. That's it for now. See you in the next post.